Sup guys, StreamYard is completely fucked up right now, so I'm going to try to just finish the video right now. No screen sharing, but I'm going to be kind of looking at my screen as I finish talking here. But as I was just saying, if you're watching that video, North Texas, the line looks so confusing. It is mystifying, so it looks very suspicious that the line has moved that much towards North Texas. It does mean some big money has driven that number towards North Texas. I think you probably missed the boat. Like, if you like them, you probably want to take the points with them, but I think the value is probably gone in that case, but I wouldn't want to disagree with where that professional money looks like it's come in. But Ken Bum does still have Minnesota being the slightly better team against North Texas. So according to him, the line should be about 3 to 4 in this game, basically. But North Texas, they fly under the radar. They're a tough team to face because I think they slow the pace down. I don't think Minnesota's that fast-paced either. North Texas is one of the better teams in the American Athletic. And Minnesota's not one of the better Big Ten teams right now. So that's what's going on in that game. I think that was it for as far as what I wanted to talk about in college basketball. I was going to say Nebraska might be worth a look as well. Just mentioning that real quick because they're playing against, who are they playing? They're playing some team that just played Creighton. Let me see. Who are they playing against? Fairleigh Dickinson, who everybody remembers. Fairleigh Dickinson. They upset Purdue in the tournament. But this is a different Fairleigh Dickinson team at this point. They're still a Northeastern Conference team, a bad conference, bad team. One of the worst teams in Division I, actually. Nebraska's up from 25 to 25.5. Will they actually cover a giant number like this? I don't know, but the spot seems to at least indicate they should come focused here because Nebraska is coming off that game where they played really poorly and almost lost to Bethune-Cookman. So that's not a good look for Nebraska, and that might cause them to refocus and actually take their next opponent seriously, even if it is Fairleigh Dickinson. And Fairleigh Dickinson did just play against Creighton, so they have to play the Nebraska double leg here, or the leg where they play both Nebraska teams. They didn't play that well against Creighton. They kind of got blown out in that game, but still, that's a step-up game, and then they have to step up for this game too. So Nebraska looks like it may be the lean in that one. Moving over to NHL. I'll do NHL next, then NBA, where I actually have my play. NHL, there were a couple of interesting situations, but I didn't want to get involved in anything. Detroit-Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's up from -125 to -137. 80% of the tickets, but 93% of the cash on the other side on the Detroit Red Wings side. So the cash looks like it's coming in on Detroit, even though the line has moved up on Pittsburgh a little bit. I'm not sure I totally see that. Detroit just played the New York Rangers, which is always a step-up game, but they did lose 4-0. And they've had 3 days off, so they do have a bunch of days off. They don't have anything up next. Anaheim is next, and they are starting a road trip. So there are reasons for Detroit to potentially still be focused here, even though they are coming off a big step-up game. They got shut out in that game, and they've had a lot of days rest to kind of break that losing momentum where they lost 2 games in a row to Toronto and New York. And starting a road trip does tend to be a focus spot, especially when it's not like a game against a lesser opponent with a bigger game up next. Even if Pittsburgh is a somewhat lesser opponent, they don't have a bigger game up next. So Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they're coming off a similar game, actually, a step-up game against Dallas. And they were coming off beating Washington and playing Carolina. So they played a string of big games in a row. Beating Washington was pretty big. Then they returned home off of that as well. So that kind of put them in a letdown spot and a bad spot. But I thought maybe they'll still be focused because the opponent is Dallas. But Dallas just wiped them out. So they're coming off that game 2 days ago. So they don't have as much rest. But they are in the second game back home now after getting kind of embarrassed in the first game back. So it could be also a positive spot for Pittsburgh in that one in a situation like that. And they want to split these 2 home games here after having lost the first one, also losing it badly, like I said. So both teams kind of have reason to show up in that game, in my opinion. Let me see. Toronto is coming off kind of a big game, and they lost to Ottawa yesterday, so they're in a back-to-back. And they do have Edmonton up next. You might think, well, that sounds like a sandwich, maybe, because Ottawa has at least been playing decent, and they're kind of a rival to Toronto because they're both in Ontario. And Toronto did get shut out in that game, though, 3-0. So Toronto may have reason to show up for that reason, but also their opponent is Washington here, even though this is a weird trip down to Washington. So they're going from capital to capital, from Canadian capital to U.S. capital, from Ottawa to Washington. I don't know, man, but with a travel like that with no days off, I mean, maybe it's still kind of a difficult spot. Washington has had a bunch of days off, though, and the last game they played, they won against St. Louis 8-1. So, I mean, they may still be focused because Toronto's not a bad team coming in here. Tough game to read. Washington's down from -130 to -128. I don't see the percentages yet on this one. And then a game I also don't see the percentages on, Carolina and Utah. This looks like it could be a spot to maybe fade Carolina here because they just went into Colorado, lost a tough, close game. Then they came out of that and they beat Vegas 2 days later, and that was 2 days ago. So that's a big win that they're coming off of. And now they have to step down and go back into elevation again and play Utah to finish the road trip. So on the one hand, yes, this is the rubber match, and they probably don't want to go 1-2 on the road trip. They prefer to go 2-1, so maybe they'll still show up for this game. But I don't know. They do have Ottawa up next. I don't know if that's really considered to be that big a game, but Ottawa's been playing decently. Utah has kind of fallen off after that hot start. So at the very least, it does look like maybe a letdown spot, though, for Carolina, coming off that big win over Vegas and big back-to-back games. Utah is returning home from a road trip, though, so that's kind of the problem. A tough road trip. They took Vegas into OT. They lost to Winnipeg, and then they went as far as St. Louis and then Nashville and got shut out in that Nashville game. Now they're returning home, but they do have 3 days off, and it is Carolina. So Carolina is a team that will still draw your focus a little bit, but do I want to actually play Utah in a return home spot? Not really. Carolina's down from -185 to -177 in this one, though, so you're not really getting a bargain laying a price like that with Carolina there, so that's what I think about that. As far as NBA, one thing I did not notice last night is that the Philadelphia 76ers, who are playing again tonight in a back-to-back, hosting Cleveland. Cleveland's up to an 8.5-point favorite in this one from 8, and it looks like Sixers have public action, 84% of the tickets and only 69% of the cash. I don't know why the public is coming in on Cleveland, unless it's because Joel Embiid came back. I didn't even realize he was coming back because I wanted to look to fade the Sixers in his first game because you know that he's going to have to get back into game shape and whatever, and he's not going to be there right away, and he did not play well last night, and the Sixers got blown out by the Knicks, I believe, but the issue with that, I don't know if that would have been able to put me over the top and put me on the New York side of that one or not, because I looked at that game and I thought, well, the 76ers have reason to play in that game because it is a playoff revenge scenario because the Knicks were the team that eliminated the Sixers last year. So that was the thing that made me stay off of the Knicks side when I first handicapped that game. I didn't realize that Embiid was coming back, though, which is a big reverse injured player spot. I should have noticed that it affected the line, though. I don't know, or maybe it affected it after I looked at the game or something, but that would, make the line move quite a bit towards the 76ers and probably put more value on the Knicks side because, like I said, the team has to get used to playing with Embiid again. I mean, they have Paul George in there now, so how did these guys mesh with each other? Obviously, they did not mesh in that first game, so that was a spot to play the Knicks, and I missed out on that, just the Embiid return from injury situation. We are also in the at the point in the season where we have this stupid in-season tournament now happening in the NBA. I hate this thing. It is terrible. And I almost don't even factor it in. I don't even pay attention oh, this is one of those games. I handicap it like it's a regular season game. That's what I did last year, and it still pretty much worked out fine. Pretty much the only thing that you might see is that some of the teams that don't have a chance to win the NBA title or whatever will take those games a little bit more seriously than the actual title contenders. But that's kind of the way that I handicap anyway, because that's just a contrarian approach anyway. So it's usually those teams that are going to be the teams that are getting value in the market more often than not anyway, or the teams that are going to be overlooked by their opponents a little bit anyway. So I didn't change anything as far as how I handicapped it last year. I don't know if there's that much of a reason to do so. I don't know. And then I think there were a couple other interesting games here. T-Wolves Blazers, I guess I will just say it is a zigzag situation where the T-Wolves lost pretty badly at Portland. I think last night, I think this is a back-to-back, 2 games between the T-Wolves and Portland in Portland. I don't know, this might be part of the in-season tournament too. I don't know, which would explain why the Blazers would have stepped it up. But again, it doesn't even matter because, of course, the Blazers are going to step it up when the T-Wolves are coming in. But now that the T-Wolves lost that game so badly, they might be angry and take the Blazers more seriously this time and be a little bit embarrassed off of that. So it might be that type of zigzag spot where the T-Wolves just show up and win this game by margin this time. But T-Wolves are only a 7.5 point favorite in that first game, and the odds makers, are accounting for the NBA zigzag here, and they've moved the line up from 8.5 to 9 in this one. So it is a lot higher than the 7.5. So the value is kind of gone if you do like the T-Wolves side, even though I agree with that side. I don't want to lay 9.5 in that game. And then the Suns-Kings, I think, was an interesting situation. If I remember correctly, there are a few things going on in this game, and the Suns looking like one of the better teams in the Western Conference right now, but they're playing a third game in 4 days, fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities, and it's also a fifth game in 8 days with only 2 home games in the mix there, and kind of step-up games, Miami, Dallas, Sacramento, and then finally had some let-up going to Utah yesterday, and they won that game too. Coming back out of that, they might not be in the best spot playing Sacramento here on a back-to-back. Like I said, third game in 4 days, all in different cities, fourth and sixth, all in different cities, coming out of elevation this time, back down to the Pacific Coast. And they have Oklahoma City up on Friday, which is a big game as well. One of the best teams in the Western Conference, and Phoenix is looking like one of the top teams as well. So that's a big matchup. So normally I would say, yeah, they might overlook Sacramento. But the problem is they just played Sacramento at home a few days ago, and Sacramento beat them in overtime. So for that reason, they might actually take Sacramento seriously just because of that. If they had beaten Sacramento in that game, well, yeah, you'd be stepping in front of a train of Phoenix that would have won like so many games in a row now. But still, it would be a situation where maybe they'd finally let off the gas and overlook Sacramento. But because Sacramento beat them in that game, it's not quite the spot that I want to actually play Sacramento there. But I still lean to the Sacramento side because they are coming off an embarrassing blowout loss to San Antonio. That was a bad spot. I played San Antonio in that game. Sacramento was coming off the game where they beat Phoenix in overtime. And now they're returning home from those 2 games too, back to the Pacific Coast. And they got Minnesota up next, and they did just beat Phoenix, like I said. Although I don't think they're really going to overlook Phoenix here, though. And especially not when they just got annihilated by San Antonio in that Phoenix sandwich. They seem to have reason to show up again, but there is just that little reason that Phoenix might show up as well. But the Kings are a 6.5 point favorite in this game, so that leads me to believe there got to be some injuries going on here again for Phoenix, because there's no way Phoenix would be that big an underdog. So Durant has been out. I assume that means he's still out. Yeah, Durant is still out. It looks like Nurkic is still like day-to-day and might come back in this game. And Bradley Beal looks like he's also day-to-day now. So a lot of injury issues for Phoenix there. So they might be short-handed as well. But all of that is factored into the line. So do I want to lay 6.5 with Sacramento in that game? No, I do not. But what I am doing is laying the points with the Houston Rockets, which is my only play today. They're up from 4.5 to 4.5 with juice. There are still 4.5s out there pretty abundantly, I think. Maybe, I thought I saw 4s too, but maybe I didn't. Tickets evenly split 50-50, but the Rockets have 80% of the cash on them. It looks like the actual money is coming in on the Rockets, and it looks like the average bettor basically is not very heavily on the Rockets at all. Like I said, it looks like they're evenly split at the very least. And looking at this, it looks like it should be a competitive matchup because it's the Clippers, it's James Harden against like this upstart Houston team that has a record that's 1 game better than the Clippers overall, basically. So the recreational bettor might come in and still think, oh, it's a competitive game, grab the points, play the underdog, because the odds makers are telling you Houston's actually the better team in this game, maybe factoring in the situation as well. But I don't know if I agree that they're the better team, but this Clippers team is just very hard to read. They're just so inconsistent. But the Clippers started their road trip 2 days ago, went to Oklahoma City and played them real tough and hung in that game. They were actually losing the game badly, and they came back from down 20 in the third quarter. Clippers put in an all-out effort, man, to come back in that game, and they got back to within 1 score late in the game, to within 2 or 3 points late in the game, and almost were able to do that and come all the way back against what may be the best team in the Western Conference, Oklahoma City. So I think they could be pretty hungover after that. That was a big-time effort, big game for the Clippers, and now they have to come out of that and face the Houston Rockets. I don't like that spot for the Clippers, man. And then turning it around, looking at Houston, are they in a positive spot? I think they kind of are because they just played Oklahoma City and they got blasted by Oklahoma City on the road. So the average bettor might come in and think, well, wait a minute. Oklahoma City just blew out Houston and the Clippers just almost beat Oklahoma City. So of course I got to take the points of the Clippers here, right? That would be the way to go. As I'm saying, that's not the way to handicap games, man. Every game is an individual situation, unique situation, and Houston is already back home. They already returned home from that road trip that took them to OKC and Detroit. They came off that game against Oklahoma City. It wasn't a good spot, but they were still able to get by Detroit and beat them, only by 2. And then they returned home from that, and they had a pretty easy win against Washington, and that's what they're coming off of 2 days ago. So they're in a better rested spot. I think they're coming off a game that really doesn't mean that much, and they won kind of easily, so it's just kind of a momentum continuer coming into this game. So I like the Houston Rockets. The market read looks to be very strong on that side as well to me, reading the market early on here. So give me that. Give me the Houston Rockets. And then we'll talk about college football before I get out of here. Maction in college football. 3 just games that just don't look good at all. The first one up on the board is Kent State at Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio is a 30-point favorite now with juice and very public, 95% of tickets and only 85% of the cash. I don't think I would want to lay the 30 with Miami, Ohio because they don't even average 30 points this year, even though, yes, they do have a decent offense with Gabbert there, Blaine Gabbert's brother, quarterback, and against Kent State, they should be able to put up points. Kent State not really good on either side of the ball, but this might be a game I would not want to lay the points, but the over might make sense in this game, which is up from 45 to 46.5, 64% of tickets, 65% of the cash. So some money has come in on the over in this one. And Kent State's defense is so bad, you probably expect Miami, Ohio will score points in this game. And when they've faced some of the lesser defenses in the conference, they have scored 38 against Eastern Michigan, 30 against Ohio, although Ohio's not even that bad, 46 against Central Michigan, but then they only put up 27 against Ball State. But because Miami, Ohio had a lackluster performance last week against Ball State, maybe that will actually have them focused in the game, so maybe they'll come out, and have a decent offensive performance. And Miami, Ohio's got to keep playing, man. Even though they have Northern Illinois and Bowling Green up to the remaining games here. And Bowling Green might be a huge game because that might wind up being the battle for the title in the MAC, basically. At least this is a battle for them to get into the MAC championship right now. They need to win games to get in, and they need one more win to become bowl eligible as well. So that's probably going to keep Miami, Ohio focused here. So I wouldn't want to fade them for that reason either. Even though Kent State is really bad, but that also is the reason why Miami, Ohio might show up and actually play offense in this one. Kent State, I mentioned they had Ulatowski in a quarterback, and their passing attack had been a little bit better with him, but he didn't play in the last game. So I don't know if he's hurt or what's going on here. So I don't even know who Kent State is going to have out there quarterback here. So a little bit questionable, although if Kent State is way behind in this game, and they're going to be throwing it. Their passing attack is better than their rushing attack. So Miami, Ohio maybe will ease up off the gas pedal at that point, and you may see Kent State maybe get some garbage time scores because they do at least try to throw the ball. So it is a fairly low total, so I could see that one going over. Next up is Akron, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, the way better team here as well, but they're down from 17 to 15. 83% of the tickets and only 57% of the cash on the Akron side, though. So conflicting indicators in the market where Akron looks like a public underdog with less of the cash on them, but the line is dropped on Northern Illinois. And the total is low. Down, it's up, though, from 44.5 to 45, but 61% of tickets on the over, 56% of cash on the under. I actually agree with the under in this game, maybe more so than the side, because Akron can't really score that much, and Northern Illinois has one of the best defenses in the MAC at the very least. This is a good defensive team, so Akron may struggle to score in this game, and Northern Illinois, they run the ball, man. So that might slow the pace of the game, or it might at the very least eat up the clock and shorten the game such that it might wind up being a lower scoring type of game. So that's kind of the way I look for that game to maybe play out. Akron's just playing out the stretch at this point, but they may be focused just because it's a Northern Illinois team that is one of the better teams in the MAC, but the record doesn't really show it. So maybe Akron won't even show up for it, but they probably still will because they're one of the lesser teams. When they have a step-up game like this, and they know it's a step-up game, they may step up their game a little bit in a game like this. But Northern Illinois, just like Ohio, they're sitting on 5 wins, but they do know they're not going to make the MAC championship game, man. I mean, that's over for them. They're 2-3, and they are coming up that big win where I played them against Western Michigan, because I said Western Michigan's overrated right now. They played a weak MAC schedule so far. Northern Illinois had a good enough defense to slow down their offense, and Western Michigan's defense is so bad that I figured Northern Illinois would be able to score on them, and they did. So that's a big game for them. They're coming off of that, and they have Miami, Ohio up next. And then they finish the season with a final home game against Central Michigan. So it is actually possible that Northern Illinois does overlook Akron because of that, because Miami, Ohio is a bigger opponent up next. They're coming off that big game against Western Michigan. The problem is they are sitting at 5 wins, so they do need to get a win to become bowl eligible, and this is their most winnable game left. So that might just still have them a little bit focused just for that reason. And as far as the rest is concerned, I forgot to look at the rest situation here, but Akron actually has extra rest because they haven't played since Saturday the 2nd, whereas Northern Illinois played in the middle of the week last week. So that's what's going on there. In that first game I talked about, I forgot to mention the rest scenario. Kent State is on basically normal rest now. I haven't played a midweek game, and so is Miami, Ohio. So those teams don't have extra rest. Miami, Ohio has 1 day extra rest, so that might also lend itself more towards an over if those defenses aren't totally rested there. And then the final game before I get out of here is, I talked about these out of order, I guess, as far as what they are on the board. I talked about them in order that they are on ESPN's schedule, because all of these games are at 7 p.m. Eastern, but I'm going out of order as far as the betting sheet is concerned. Eastern Michigan against Ohio is actually the second game listed there, and Akron, Northern Illinois is the last, but whatever. Ohio against Eastern Michigan is up from 8 to 10.5, so if you like Ohio, you've missed the boat on that one. The line has moved way up on them. You want it to get under 10 at the very least if you wanted to play Ohio, in my opinion. I don't know that laying the points is necessarily like a strong play here, though. 74% of tickets and 92% of the cash on them. So it does look like the actual money is on the Ohio side, though. And total is up from 48.5 to 50.5. 73% of tickets, but only 51% of the cash on the over. But it does look like some money has actually come in to drive that line up on the over. And the over might make sense here because Eastern Michigan, they play a really fast pace, they throw the ball a lot, and they don't play defense. So Eastern Michigan does play a lot of overs. So I could see it going that way because their defense is extremely vulnerable. They speed up the game. And Eastern Michigan, their defense might be in bad shape as well because they're coming off a close game against Toledo, man, where Eastern Michigan bounced back from a bad performance, so they lost to Akron, I think. Very ugly, bad game there. They played tough in this game against Toledo, and they almost beat them. So coming off of that, they might actually be in kind of a bad spot off of that, so that might be the reason why people are playing Ohio. But Eastern Michigan is also sitting at 5 wins. So many of these teams are sitting at 5 wins, man, and they have Buffalo and Western Michigan remaining. Buffalo at home, obviously, is their best shot to get that bowl eligibility. But Eastern Michigan, they were in a bowl last year, but I think they hadn't been in a bowl for a long time. So they want to get back there again. I think that's their goal again. They want another win. So that is one reason that they would show up focused still. They do have extra rest, not having played since Saturday the 2nd, so they're the more rested of these two teams. But coming off that tough game against Toledo, it might be tough to then turn around and play a pretty good Ohio team as well. So I don't know about that situation, but they do have the extra rest, and maybe that'll help them bust that, like, losing momentum there at the very least. Ohio, on the other hand, they're just kind of rolling right now. They played a midweek game, so they have a little bit less rest. They crushed Kent State. Nobody cares. Everybody crushes Kent State. Ohio, that gave them bowl eligibility, but I don't think they're done yet. I don't think they're going to be in a letdown just because they got bowl eligibility, because Ohio, they're 4-1 in conference, man. They want to try to get into the MAC championship. That's their goal. They know they're one of the better teams in the MAC. And their quarterback situation has been weird, where Navarro started the season. I don't know if he got hurt or if he got pulled. They put in Poulos, and he was way worse. But Navarro's back in there. Navarro's their better quarterback, and they should be able to throw the ball on this Eastern Michigan team. They do have Toledo up next, but like I said, Ohio needs to win these games, man, to remain in contention for the MAC here. So I don't really think they're going to overlook this game. But again, like I said, the over, I think, is what makes the most sense in a game like that. So that's going to do it for me, man. Sorry about the StreamYard issues. They should apologize. So I'm going to put this video up, and it's going to be 2 videos, a split video. So you get junk college basketball. I get cut off, and then I finish the video here. My actual only play today, Houston Rockets -4.5. Let's get it. Let's get a win. I want to win, man. Peace out. Have a good day. And follow the Tower Gang Podcast. Of course, I'm Tower Gang Toad. We are on tonight, baby. 9:11 p.m. Wednesday night. Tower Gang Wednesday. Have a good one. And subscribe to the Patreon. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. No better time to do it than on a Wednesday because you get live pre-show and post-show tonight and get to submit to the mailbag, hang out in the Telegram. Have a good one, man. Tower Gang Wednesday. Peace out.